Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness. This video is going to be a continuation and a deep dive into a previous video that I did in which I gave I'll go over some of the topics, which I did a channeling with my higher guidance team. And essentially what I do is, for those of you who don't know me, I just drop into my heart, drop into my body, expand my consciousness into the field of where I refer to as my higher self, where all of our guides and angels and ancestors uh, can connect in. And I just kind of share whatever messages come through that connection. And a lot of times my guides will do it in a very um, wordy but a poetic way so that I can use language in a different way than how I might be used to using it in a linear way. So it's more multidimensional and it has a lot of facets. So I'm going to go back in and share a deep dive into what they were talking about. I will share the link to the video before. Some of the key resonance themes in that video were talking about distraction versus expansion and how we move back in and out of distraction, and a lot of us are being pulled into distraction so that we aren't recognizing that we're moving into expansion. Because when we do that, when we're distracted by everything, we're not really aware of how much growth is occurring. And we tend to think that nothing is happening, things aren't changing. And my guidance team is like, everything is changing, everything is different. And so just being aware of that is really important. I also talk about cosmic cleanup that's happening in the body as well as planetarily and obviously in the cosmos. And I connected in that previous video about Three Eye Atlas, which I'm sure will come up again, and just some of the cosmic radiation that we're receiving that is enhancing our own um, growth and evolution. I also talk about the diamond lattice work. So I'm kind of looking at my notes here, bridging nodes of the old and the new, creating a DNA-like ladder. And we're going to go into that. Light body mechanics, embodied listening, and I talked about compatience, which is my combination of compassion and patience. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to drop right into the deep dive on the channeling of what the guides are talking about that's going on. I also want to add to this. I shared this a little bit of this video with my dear friends and sisters who I've done many videos with previously. We haven't done one lately, but Jess, Maitri, and Candace and we're going to go in and do a deeper dive, including some topics around brain spotting. Jess and I are going to share that at a later time. Because as I was sharing this video, she's like, Carrie, you're talking about brain spotting. So she's going to hopefully shed light even more so than what I'm able to shed in this particular video. But I thought this would be a good entryway in. And this is about the evolution of the human body from the perspective of the guides. So I'm just going to kind of repeat and read through just the channeling portion of what I had shared. And then I'm going to share screen and I'm going to give you kind of a tutorial on some of the information that I'm coming to understand of what's happening in our solar system and in our own solar system inside of our bodies. So as we move through these mass transits, as we allow for these transitions to occur, I was seeing transitional lenses, we allow ourselves to see through the dark and the light, and we just adjust accordingly. We do not take our glasses off and think our glasses aren't working. It is true, there is light and dark. So this was a play on words a little bit because if you are transitioning, like in transitional lenses, if you're going from the outside um, in, the lenses get lighter. If you're going from the inside out, right, the lenses get darker. But we're like, oh, we're not going to throw those away because we have both. So we're just adjusting to that. It is true that there is light and dark funneling in from many different directions. And yet we are being called to work with what we have to work with. I'm going to pause there One of the things that my guides were showing me is a lot of us aren't working with what we have. A lot of people are looking for something else. They don't feel like they have enough. They don't feel like they're smart enough. They don't feel like they're psychic enough. And my guides are constantly showing me that we have more than enough. We just aren't used to going within and finding it because we're so distracted with our lives, with what's happening around us. And sometimes that keeps us funneling our energy in those particular, what I'm seeing as I say this, spider webs, right? Funnel webs. We are being called to recognize that we are receiving assistance from our galactic and planetary brothers and sisters. I want to pause there because a lot of us think that our galactic brothers and sisters are off planet. They think that they're, in Andromeda, or they're coming from, the Arcturian group that is located someplace else. And my team is like, actually, they're here on planet Earth. And guess what? They're also in your DNA. We're all star seeds. So we have aspects of those beings already inside of us. Um, and they're not all off planet, even though we think they are. Also, I'm being called to share my version of what I see reality. I see reality as bubbles, subsets within subsets, layers, nesting dolls, and none of it's really separate. There's just densities in which we can perceive some and some we can't perceive. And this is where a lot of us in the metaphysical and spiritual community are hearing the veil is thinning. Well, what is that veil but a layer in which we view reality, and how we see through it and how thick it is determines what we can see on the other side. And so a lot of people are having what was referred to as paranormal experiences, when in actuality they're very normal. We're just not used to having them. For just as you have human brothers and sisters, the earth has planetary brothers and sisters. The stars have planetary brothers and sisters, or other stars that are their brothers and sisters. And all is working together in this transition and in this transit. And it's funny because I'm seeing the stairs. Like, again, there's the staircase, right? The ladder, DNA, spiral. And all is working together in this transition and in this transit, or this particular phase of development. So I'm going to pause there. It's kind of a play on words, because we're in transition, we're moving and transitioning through something, we're in a transit, or we can consider this a particular phase of development, that we're in, that we're moving through. And this is kind of a playback on astrology because a lot of people are talking about transits right now. And I might even come back and go through a little bit more of the transits, even though I'm not really an astrologer in any way, shape, or form. While some rely firmly on astrology and others balk at astrology, and what some are interpreting as a transit has one meaning for them, but it actually has multiple implications. So this is where I want to dive into this a little more deep. I'm going to try to make this as quick as a video as I possibly can. I'm a little bit low on time here, so we might have to do part 1 and part 2. But if I just look at what is a transit, and I love this because the guides are playing with this. In astrology, a transit is when a current day's planet's position forms an aspect to a planet in your birth chart, which is thought to influence current events and moods. It represents the relationship between the moving planets and the fixed positions at the time of your birth, and can signify life transitions, opportunities, or challenges. I'm not going to go into all of this. That's the AI overview, by the way, of what that is. I love this, you guys, because I don't really know much about astrology. And what the guides are talking about is it says that uh, they say interpretation of transits is usually fairly similar to the interpretation of progressions. And that now I'm on Wikipedia. In general, however, transits provide or primarily involve developments in the life circumstances outside the individual's control. The most important point to remember with transits is that the pattern of the natal chart always determines their value. So I'm not going to go into the astrology portion. It's a play on words. The guides are like, this is an interpretation of something that's outside of us, right? It's a transit that we're currently in. So it's the planets. But as you can see from, and you'll see as I read through the channeling, is that the actual message is that it's not outside of us, it's happening inside of us. And that's kind of the whole point. So our interpretation of transit is actually something that we need to see is going on inside of us. And of course, in astrology, they try to, connect the two, which is why you read your astrological birth chart information, right? But what they're saying is, let's play with this a little bit because the whole point, this particular video that I did was around Three-Eye Atlas and how Three-Eye Atlas is actually having an impact in our transits and in our planetary growth and expansion. And I'm not going into the astrology of it. This has nothing to do with that in this video, although an astrologer would say, well, it has everything to do with it. And that's one interpretation. So the point is some are fixed on that and others don't believe in it at all. So, but what they are saying is, I'll go a little deeper into this. If you actually look up what a transit is, so let me just go back and read. While some firmly, and that's a play on words too, firmly rely on astrology and others balk at astrology, and what some are interpreting as a transit has one meaning for them. So one meaning is it's an astrological transit, and what the spiritual or metaphysical or astrology type uh, teachers are talking about is when you have something that's big moving through our solar system, it's going to impact our astrology, okay? And that's planets and so on and so forth. But if you look up transit in etymology, it means the passage or act of passing or to go or passing through something. So it's all a double, triple meaning. And I want to keep playing with this because it means to go across, okay, axes, also four, to pass through something, waves, particles. And it also talks about a passage. And there's more, but wait, there's more. And in the definition, it means the carrying of people, goods, or materials from one place to another. Now I'm tying this all together because when I went back, I realized as I was channeling this information, I see pictures, I hear words, and I utilize all of it to try to assist in bringing forward the message, bringing through the message. And what they're telling us in this is that we are going through something. There's also something going through our solar system, and it is carrying with it in this transit, in this lineup, okay, in astrology, it is carrying goods or materials from one place to another. And that was what the message was actually when I channeled it, and I didn't quite understand it. We're receiving energy and elements in like space dust that is being amplified by the wind, solar wind, so on and so forth. And it's being carried, those goods are being carried down into Earth through our atmosphere, through our water, through our soil, and through our skin, through our bones and our blood, through the electrons and the ions, and it's quantum. And this, oh, I'm getting goosebumps, is enhancing our evolution. So that whole paragraph is a play on words. So it has one meaning for someone, but it has many meanings, is what the guides are saying. It has multiple implications. So I'll continue. So you could think of this asteroid as a transit. So it's a carrier of something, if you will, or a particular alignment with certain planetary conjunctions. So at one point it was behind the sun and in alignment with Earth, as an example. We would venture to say that the energy coming from this particular alignment is being enhanced right now. And this is ongoing, you guys, as long as this is moving through our system. Because of the solar activity and the extreme energetic convergence that is happening because of you as a collective of frequencies and energies, because of you and the glue, and I was hearing as the glue, that is holding all of this geometry together. So what my guides continuously show me is that everything's quantum and everything is just one giant piece of artwork, right? Different colors, different paints, different mediums. But the medium that is the glue or the gluons or the plasma, right? The aether, the elements that we are all made up of, are going through an extreme energetic convergence, but it's happening because of us. Okay. We're the ones creating the lattice work, the diamond, the geometry, okay, and holding this together. And if you've never looked at a crystal before, I encourage you to look at the way a crystal is held together. We are bones and blood and fascia, and we're held together in a geometry, so to speak, a shape, right? And I'm being called to play with energetic convergence. For energetic convergence, it's to incline together, to bend or to turn. So I'm playing with this. Okay, this is the etymology. And when I see um, incline, I think of that as going up. Also, of course, when you think of incline, I'm inclined to believe that. I'm going towards that. I'm leaning in. It's something that I'm more likely to agree with, right? So we're actually coming together. You could think of it as an intersection, okay? And so the guides are saying we are the reason for this energetic convergence, and that has several meanings. And I'll continue and maybe come back to this. In the channeling, I was seeing a geo in geometry and a metric system and a tree, like the tree of life. And it led me to thinking of lattice work, planetary alignments and the movement, like the spin of the sun, and so on and so forth. So if a new element, continuing with the guides, is introduced into your solar system, the way in which your solar system interacts with it, and therefore your entire solar system, is influenced. And so the energy must reconfigure or adapt to that, one might say, in order to accept this new pattern. And I was shown kind of like a puzzle, like puzzle pieces kind of reforming themselves or reformatting to basically, rather than collide together, to become more fluid and merge. Accept. And they were showing an example of soup. So if you have another ingredient in the soup, it changes the flavor, right? And if you're adding, let's say, obviously on an elemental amount, it might not seem that it's bigger, but they were showing me that something has to make space for this new ingredient. Now, if you think of an asteroid moving through our solar system, things move out around it, right? And so you might think of things bending or moving around it. You might think of when a boat moves through the water and the water is displaced. Getting goosebumps again. The waves are displaced. The plasma moves and it reforms and fits around this, and then it comes back together and so on and so forth. And it's never the same because it's been touched by this element. And it's just like chemistry. If you're adding another element, it changes the chemical combinations of what it began with. I was also seeing that this, a crystal, as it changes from one form into another, it changes shape. It might get bigger and expands. And the word I was hearing was we're expanding. And the guides continue, and you have all asked to grow. You have all asked for growth. And yet, coming with this growth can sometimes be growing pains, of course. But we would invite you to play with these words and see pain as a window pane. So they're playing with the spelling there, right? You are looking through the window, seeing something from a particular standing point, play on words, from a particular point in time, from a particular place. So I was seeing a compass and, that's held in, is that Mercury or, and it moves or water. Um, and so depending on where we are, the direction changes as well as how we see that direction, right? If we look at something at sunset, it looks different to us than if we look at it at sunrise. So if we're in the east versus when we're in the west, and so on and so forth. They're also talking about pain as another meaning, which I will come back to. And they're asking me in my channeling to play with the word standing point. If I read through this, they're saying we are seeing something from a particular standing point, from a particular point in time, from a particular place, looking through this window. So not only are we standing in a particular place, but we're looking through something that is creating a distortion. It's creating a buffer and a sense it's two different mediums, right? So that is all relevant to what we're experiencing and how we're seeing this planetary conjunction, convergence, or whatever it might be. Also, our evolution. So if I play with this, the guides are saying, play with all of these words. What is a standing point? Well, of course, I saw it as a standing wave, which we'll get into later. But if you look up standing point, it's not necessarily an AI overview, a physics term, but it likely refers to a node, a stationary point in a standing wave. It can be conceptually linked to a stationary point in a mathematical function, and this is where it gets fun, which describes a point where the function's rate of change is zero. And of course, that leads me to 0 point. So let's talk about this very briefly, because this is going to be part 1 of this video. A standing wave or stationary wave is a wave that remains in a constant position. It is created when two waves with the same frequency and amplitude travel in opposite directions and interfere with each other. There are two important features: a node, a point on the wave that remains completely stationary due to destructive interference. The displacement of the medium at a node is always 0. This is the most common interpretation of a standing point in a wave context. An antinode, a point on the wave where the amplitude is maximum and the oscillation is at its greatest displacement. Now, part of what I was seeing is when you move energy, you're displacing the energy and it shifts. And a lot of what I've channeled, the guides talk about displacement. And so maybe at some point I can tie all of that together. I'm going to try to just go through this particular channeling and then maybe we'll come back to that. In physics, this concept is used to describe a system's equilibrium states, where the rate of change of a variable is 0. And we're going to come back to this because this is a play on words. It's not exactly literal, but there is definitely some description in here of what's happening because of this growth rate that we are experiencing. So it is a wave that oscillates in time, standing wave, but whose peak amplitude profile does not move in space. The peak amplitude of the wave oscillations at any point in space is constant with respect to time, and the guides talk about time later in this, And the oscillations at different points throughout the wave are in phase. They also use that as a play on words. So we'll have to come back to this a little bit later. This is just an introduction to kind of where we're going with this. So you've all asked to grow, and we would invite you to play with these words. See pane as window pane. You are looking through the window, you're at a particular standing point, right? Maybe 0 point. And this particular place where we're looking through and how we're seeing it lends to inquiry. So even that is a play on words. It lends to inquiry. I just have to laugh. So inquiry obviously means we're asking a question, right? So it leads to questions. We're asking questions, but it lends to inquiry. So obviously this is an old way of speaking, but it's like a temporary thing. And it allows us to ask questions about ourselves, ask questions about the universe. Why is this happening? Why am I feeling this way? But what causes us, I'm being guided to go deeper into this. Why do we ask questions? Well, think about obviously the Bible, know thyself. And so if we go back to inquiry, it means to seek, right? Seek and you shall find. It means to ask for information, okay? And then to lend means to grant temporarily, but to go deeper, it actually means to bend and to send. So it comes from bend and send. And what we were just talking about earlier, it lends to inquiry. So we're leading, it's bending, displacing, bending certain things in our environment, lending and sending. Earlier, I was saying that we are being sent energy, right, from this all around us, the connections to these planets and so on and so forth through the solar winds and everything else. So it's like it's bending time or bending something, and it's causing us to, so this is all a double meaning. I'm trying to share this because the guides are like, use communication differently than we have. So we're playing with this. So it lends to inquiry. It causes you to inquire about that which you see. And the more inquiry that is brought to reflect upon, it's also a play on words, like it's being brought to reflect upon, brings more, and therefore more doors are created, more node points are created. Now, if we go back to node points, it goes back to standing wave. More energetic convergences are created, connections, axis points. More emergences of creation are then created. So this has to do with more coming out about creation, more things being created. The more we ask, the more we receive. It's all a play on words. Therefore, creation grows. More planets are discovered. More self-discoveries are made. More galactic discoveries are made, etc., etc. And then, of course, it goes back to more things are created. New elements are introduced. So we end up discovering more things. We get to create more things because more things become available to us. And I'm hearing metals, like for example. So the energies that are converging in order to create this are currently being distorted, if you will. The energies that are converging in order to create this are currently being distorted because the window you are looking through, or that which you have been taught to view through, or the view that you are seeing through, is also distorted at times. I'm going to break this down in a minute. Meaning you think you have to view it one way, when in reality, if you just open the window and allow the sunlight to pour in, you will feel the shine. You will feel a new ability to embrace reality in a different harmonic, energetic convergence in accordance with the new reality. So, this goes deep. Because basically it's saying many things. The energies that are converging in order to create this. So there's reasons that these energies are happening. We've asked for this. That's why it's happening. And also the energies that are converging on purpose to create this are currently being distorted. Now, this is also a play on words. So it could be that they're being distorted um, because it's like, what is it when the slit experiment? When we look at something, our expectations can change the outcome of the waves and particles. Are they particles or are they waves? Right? Depends on what we're thinking when we're viewing the results of a scientific experiment. I don't know if it's the slit theory. I'll have to come back to that. But it's been shown that we can distort the outcome of the results of certain experiments based on our energy. And this is also shown even as something as simple as the Dr. Emisaro and the rice experiment and the water. So it's like when you, there's a beautiful woman who's going around talking about the artwork with water. Maybe I'll share those links later if I can get the time to put this all together. But essentially, when we say certain words, we have an impact on that snowflake of water, that shape of water, and it will change based on how we are perceiving it. I love you has a different shape than I hate you, right? By the way, I don't know if you guys have, I'm sure if you're watching this, you've seen those before. I've talked about it so many times. But I encourage you to look that up on your own. And eventually I'll go back and add that as a link. It's a science thing. It's not woo-woo. So part of the reason they're being distorted is because we're looking in a particular way, we're thinking in a particular way, and this is, I'm getting goosebumps. We are also using our eyes, our senses, and how we perceive things is based on the energy that we're used to being in, the window that we're used to looking through, the looking glass, our reflection and our perception. So if we're asking more questions, lending to inquiry, how we perceive this will also change. Therefore, the plasma that's all around us, the waters in our body, will also change, hence evolve. I cannot get rid of my goosebumps right now. Not that I want to, but you guys follow what I'm putting down? So fun. So, um, basically, if we're looking through rose-colored glasses, we think the world looks one way when it may or may not. But the irony is if we hold a coherent space and our water in our bodies and our energetic body is responding to our positivity, the way we see reality, it's like Eeyore, right, in Winnie the Pooh. Like, oh, today is not good. That's a different frequency than than Winnie the Pooh or Tigger or whoever else. Um, my science-based comparisons. And also the window that you are looking through. So let me just reread this and break that down too. So the energies that are converging in order to create this are currently being distorted, if you will. They always say that, like, there's different ways of looking at it. Because the window you are looking through, or that which you have been taught to view through, like, you have to look through this window. This is how you have to view the world. It looks, that you have to use this to see everything. Maybe the television, maybe our, the way we view our reality because of how we've been brought up. And we've been taught this, right? So we've been taught to view through this, or the view that you are seeing through is also distorted at times. So however we hold ourselves is sometimes distorted. Somebody looking at themselves in the mirror, I'm going to take that off topic for a minute, thinking they're unattractive or nobody loves them, right, may not be true. That's just how they are seeing it. So they're looking at the window and we're like, or they're looking through a really dirty window and we're like, just clean up that window. You'll see things differently. But it gets deeper than this because they're like, get rid of the window eventually. But we'll get to that. Meaning you think you have to look at it in one way. When in reality, if you just open the window and allow the sunlight to pour in, you will feel the shine. So this is all a triple meaning as well. and I'm sure I'm missing some of it, but part of it is our idea about the sun. Part of it is about our relationship with the sun. Part of it is like we have to keep the window closed to protect us when that may not be fully 100% true, right? And they're saying just open the window. That just means like we don't even have to have it there. And it doesn't have to be literal. Like, what are we using as a barrier? What are we looking through that's causing us to not be able to see? What perspective are we holding? Where are we standing in the room while we're looking through the window? That's changing the angle of how we see things. You know, is the window on a slant? Is it dirty? Is it clean? Just open it up. And then you feel the energy. And this is literal in some ways because the guides are like, get out in the sun, get outside, get in nature, and you're going to feel that energy. You're going to feel what this is all about rather than looking through something, looking at something. Feel it, experience it. What is this all about? Ask the questions. And the combination of asking the questions, the inquiry being curious, changing our perspective, and allowing ourselves to feel the sun, to feel the energy around us through the plasma, through the air, makes it experiential. And therefore, it changes how we interact with it and how we interact with and through our body, which our bodies are also the window. Our eyes are the windows. You will feel a new ability to embrace reality in a different harmonic energetic convergence. So they're saying we're going through an energetic convergence. But guess what? If you shift all of that, you open to it, you're going to experience it in a different way. And it'll be a different energetic convergence because the harmonic, we're all sound, we're all waves, we're all patterns, right? Moving through this field. And that is a harmonic frequency. So that will change if we accept it, open it, curious about it, and don't block it by keeping everything closed. And it becomes a different reality in accordance with the new reality. Because, as they said earlier, we are the reason this is happening. So it's for our advancement, it's for our growth, it's for our evolution. And I love it because they say in accordance, in agreement, right? We're like, yeah, bring it on. And it's a dance, it's a chord, it's a frequency, it's a string, it's a sound, it's 432 hertz, it's that sort of thing with the new reality. So then we are in the new reality. We're with it. We're not just looking at it or questioning about it. We're actually experiencing it. So I was shown like people might feel like they're slipping on rocks right now, like they're really not sure where to walk. They feel like they could slip at any moment. It can feel off balance. And they're also pointing out that it can be especially this way for people who are used to teaching about how reality is and how it works. So just being aware of that. And then they continue. Scientists must stick to a general consensus in order to hold on to the paradigm that they have invested in, or solely invested in. It is not necessarily their soul that is invested in it, yet it is their life, their lifetime achievement award. So I'm going to pause right there. That whole thing is a play on words. They're using like stick. The scientists must stick, right? So it's stuck. That's the glue, right? They were talking earlier about the glue that holds the universe together. Well, they're the glue that are holding together a particular story, a particular reality, that much of our reality that we have been taught is based off of. Um, so they're doing it in a general consensus. So that's a play on words as well. They're agreeing to do this. Not everybody, but, and it's not like it's a bad thing. It's not like people are saying, I'm going to say this just because I want to. It's like it's not even necessarily intentional. They don't realize, and it's not all science that's like out the window. Certain things that are embedded in our science that it's not necessarily that it's wrong. It just isn't the same anymore. because now we understand how things work differently. It's like going from Newtonian science to Einstein to now all of the new science that's being introduced. Our elemental chart that I grew up in chemistry is not the same. We have more elements. So guess what? Chemistry is going to be different. Oh, we can play with this. Well, then that changes this, right? Um, but they are guiding me to play with that general consent. I think it's so funny. So, um, with the general, so scientists must stick to a general consensus in order to hold on to the paradigm that they have invested in. So it's not that they're like paying for this monetarily, although some are, right? They get, what I'm hearing is spiffs. Like, hey, if you agree with this, we're gonna fund your projects. So some of it is money related, but it's also invested in like energetically, emotionally, time wise. They've been working on this for 20 years. So the general consensus, if you look at what the definition of that is, a widely shared opinion, but it's also in decision making, it means everyone can live with the outcome and support it, even if they don't all agree on it, or even if it wasn't their first choice. Um, so there's more to this though. I can see that they're like, nope, go deeper. So this goes back to a couple of things. Um, have you guys seen Mel Robbins, that podcaster? She's awesome. I don't watch many of her podcasts, but the ones I've seen are just so good. And she recently had somebody that interviewed and was talking about like collective, can't even remember what the whole topic was, but it was like how we collectively agree on stuff, right? Doesn't even mean that we necessarily agree with it, but it's like almost survival. Anyways, I encourage you to watch that. Well, all of her podcasts really, but that was one of the ones. I hadn't watched one in a long time. I'll have to try to find that link. So, again, accord, agreement. So they're playing with us. Like it's a general accord, frequency, energy, basis of reality, dimension, understanding, opinion. And basically, if you think about senses, it's to feel. So when you feel like you're in agreement with something, you feel supported. You feel like, okay, I've got my crew, I've got my team. Even if they don't agree, they can all agree that this is how reality works, and then they branch off and do and it makes you feel like you have a foundation. So if your foundations are shaken to the core, it really makes you feel off balance. Like, well, if this isn't real, then what is? Or wait a minute, this changes everything. And that's what the guides are saying. Like, eventually they're going to come to that, not really conclusion, but the next step. This can be, I don't know, mathematics too. But so a lot of people are invested in, so it's not their soul that's invested in it, but that's the only thing they've invested in. I only believe in the Big Bang Theory, and it only looks like this, right? Also, it's saying that there's some people are waiting for that Lifetime Achievement Award, right? They're waiting for this because they've put so much work into it. And then all of a sudden they're like, yep, never mind. I mean, this could be, sad. So this is where we invite all who can be fluid in this reality to allow for this open exchange to occur. So people who can allow it, that's going to shift the reality almost in a softer way. I'm saying it's going to soften the fall or soften the intensity for some of the others who are really embedded. It's almost like you start to introduce pieces, you start to become aware of it. And this has to do with, what did I say earlier? Displacement. So I did a video recently talking about when loved ones that have passed and how I won't go into all of it, but basically the more of us that can be fluid and hold that space, we're the ones shifting the glue of the energy of the quantum that supports reality. We're the ones ushering in the higher dimensions. We all are doing it in our own way. Not everyone. Some people want that lower dimension to stay in. Just because people don't want to see change doesn't mean they want bad things or lower frequencies. It just means that's their belief. But what they're saying is, oh, and they're playing with this like it was no movement, stuck, but can we be fluid and allow it to be unstuck? And it allows for an open exchange to occur in this reality. So it's not like going off and starting a brand new reality. We're like, here, we're going to hold this space and we're going to allow these fluctuations to occur. And that's going to shift things in a more streamlined way. There was more, I just lost it. It'll come back. For the energies that are pouring in, again, from the sun, and I'm being shown it going into our pores and through the rain, the oceans, may not necessarily be understood. And they may not necessarily be seen in the physical yet. And that was a play on words. Like they may not be seen in the physical yet or ever. Like they may not be seen. Or the outcome of these energies may not be seen right now. So later on, it's like we might look back and go, oh, that's what was going on through this particular screen. So in this particular movie, at this particular time, etc. Yet we assure you that once this screen or window is cleaned, opened slightly, shifted from being closed, a closed, closely knit pattern that people are seeking to hold on to, it will allow for air to flow, airflow. It'll allow for more to come in. And this is already happening. Yet, we are just sharing why there's a time lag or a lag time. Why it is that some people are not experiencing the new reality in the way they would like to. So we are collectively creating and co-creating. And the more we ask ourselves, ask of ourselves, lend inquiry to, the more we are opening to the codes that are held within the codex, within our codons. And then I was hearing imperial. So let's break that down a little bit. So part of this is about not resisting. So the window that they're saying to open is also what is called the window to our soul, our eyes, right? The windows to our soul. Well, yeah. So when we open our eyes and see with eyes to see, we experience reality in a different way. It's just like someone who can see auras or someone who can see energy. I mean, they don't operate within the same frame or screen that someone else who's closed off to all of that does. So as all of us begin to do this, reality shifts, and they keep bringing me back to the word, not disperse. What did I say earlier? Lots of words here I'm not used to using. Well, I can't remember. I thought it was dispersion, but I thought that had to do with more wave mechanics. But basically, dispersion in physics. There's another one. I'll come back to it. But if we're looking at it in physics, it's a phenomenon where a wave's speed depends on its frequency or wavelength, causing the wave components to separate. So it's like white light into, the rainbow going through the prism is dispersion of light through the prism. Now, what happens then is I'm hearing it's able to bend more, bend and blend and merge easier. So again, it has to do with how fast we evolve. There's more. It has to do with how fast we evolve and how long. So we become these prisms, basically, and we become fluid. So it moves through us. It's like water. I'm just seeing a lot here. And it changes the speed. It changes the wavelength. It changes how big it is. It changes how long it is, right? Sound waves, essentially. Ooh, this is... Okay, we'll come back to that. So fun. All right, let me not get off track too much here. Guys, I was also seeing a reference. Have you guys ever seen the show Silo? Silo, I think it's called Silo, where they go underground and then like they clean the window. And she's like, no, I'm not going to clean the window. Or I sorry if I just gave that away, but it's pretty fascinating. And they're kind of playing with that. Like all these people are looking through the window when they think reality is one way because that's what they've been told. And they were using that as a reference. So that's kind of a fun show to, a little depressing, but it's actually a pretty good show. So, yet we assure you that once the screen or window is cleaned, opened slightly, shifted from being closed. Now, when I say screen, I'm also seeing a movie screen and it's a projection, like how we see things, because later on I'm going to get to our brain and our eyes. It literally changes how we interpret everything around us. And we are essentially, um, it changes the cones in our, like how we receive and send information literally through our bloodstream, through our bodies as a conductor. This energy that's coming in the plasma and not just from the asteroid, but that's assisting it through Atlas. So be fluid rather than rigid allows us to accept the energies easier. And it makes it easier too. You guys know a lot of you have been doing personal work. It's like when you are in resistance to things, it makes it really challenging. But when you just are kind of like, all right, I'm going to relax, I'm going to go with the flow, be the seaweed, it's so much easier simultaneously, even though we might be experiencing growing pains with it. So they're saying, can we be fluid even while we're experiencing this? And it allows for an open exchange. Okay, I found it. Thermodynamics is what I was trying to think of. I mean, seriously, how come I couldn't think of that? Anyways, so thermodynamics, it talks about open exchange depends on the content, of course, but it's talking about quantum mechanics. So in thermodynamics, I'm just going to use this as an example. An open system is a physical system that can freely exchange both matter and energy with its surroundings. Um, so it's like both. There's more to this. Electromagnetic force. Ooh, exchange interactions and symmetry. So this could be fun. Describes the flow of real, tangible matter and energy across a physical boundary. So again, we're talking the Earth, our solar system, our bodies. So it's physical and it's tangible. Also, the exchange interactions describe a fundamental quantum mechanical process involving virtual particles that governs how forces operate and how matter behaves at the subatomic level. Now, what they're talking about is this happening on a quantum scale, and we'll come back to that later. Okay. So once the screen and window is cleaned, this is also our eyes. So as this happens, it's cleaning out our system. And I'm going to go into this in a lot more depth when I get Jess on here and we can go into some brain spotting about the brain because she'll be able to go into this. And I someday I'm going to go into this with my dear sister and friend Candace also because she has a lot of knowledge in the astrology and the gene keys. I mean, this is a big conversation about genetic mutation. And the whole timing of all of this is funny because I've been talking about mutation and the mutants. I've been dreaming about it. And then my friend is like, oh, by the way, that's happening in the gene keys. I'm like, oh, okay. So that'll be a future conversation, I hope. Um, so this allows for this open exchange to occur, and we'll come back to that as well. For the energies that are pouring in may not necessarily be understood, and they may not be seen yet through this particular screen on how we're viewing things. So it also says that it's once it's opened slightly, it's like they're showing me two doors and you have one door open and so a certain amount of energy is coming in. But once you're like, huh, I wonder what happens if I open this other door, it's like a funnel. So part of what's happening astrologically is because of the solar activity, we are getting funneled. It's like whoosh, energy's coming straight in. And I'm being shown the prism again, like the light, the rainbow, and all of that. So we're used to things being closed and we're used to a closed, closely knit pattern. even in the science community, they think that they're open to all this stuff, but it's like, nope, this is how reality works. This is the shape. And what they're showing me is this opening in this gap. And I drew a picture, um, well, anyways, somewhere of the diamond lattice work. You can go back to my other video. They're showing me a third frequency that's coming in, and I'll come back to that. That people are seeking to hold on to. They're looking for something to hold on to. They're like, well, what can I hang on to that is gonna be close to what I know? But the guides are like, open it up and it will allow for more airflow. That also has to do with breathing. It's literal. It has to do with the air that's moving around us and just flow. I'm also seeing a jet stream as I say this. It'll allow for more to come in. And that is already happening. Yet we are just sharing why there's a lag time. So what they were saying earlier is in part is the lag time has to do with time, how we perceive time, the window that we're looking through, and how people are responding to this. So there's partly a lag time because people are in resistance, because people aren't opening and allowing for this to shift their perspective and their reality. So again, the more fluid we can become, the less lag time there will be. But we're kind of waiting for people to grow with us, so to speak. And some people are not experiencing the new reality in the way they would like to, because they're still looking through an old dirty window. So we are collectively co-creating and creating. And the more we ask of ourselves, the more we are opening to the codes that are held within the codex, within our codons. So we're just going to play with that really. So obviously a lot of us know codons have to do with DNA. I'm just going to read you the definition. Oh, how funny. 3. So I was seeing like 3 was 2, now it's 3. A sequence of 3 nucleotides which together form a unit of genetic code in a DNA or RNA molecule. So there's so much that I want to go into here, but it's codes for a specific amino acid. But this is also a play on words. So it's genetic code. It changes our genetics, essentially, and we evolve. So now I'm going to play with this because nothing is ever literal. I mean, only literal in the way that I interpret information. So the more we ask of ourselves, right? The more we ask these questions, the more we shift our reality and our perspective, this changes and allows for the fluids in our body to adapt, to feel more at ease. Coherent standing wave. We become a longer wave that is able to perceive more information because we're not blocking it. We receive more information because we're coming into a place of acceptance and relaxation for the most part. And that allows us to open. I'm seeing like a flower taking in the sun to the codes that are inside of us, our DNA, molecules, everything else that are held within the codex. We'll come back to that later, within our codons. So it's all connected. And if we go to a genetic code, it is a set of rules used by living cells to translate information encoded within genetic material, sequences or codons into proteins. So I won't go into all of that because it really is happening in the mitochondria and everything else. So we're able to interpret the information, and the guides in this entire message, what's really cool is they're like, it's inside of us. Like, it's all inside of us, right? So that shifts, and guess what? All of a sudden, we're in a different dimension. We are the creators, essentially. And this is the word I was hearing was imperial. And so we're going to play with that briefly. Imperial, obviously, we know it means the emperor or empire, but I'm seeing command power is an order. So to command order. So the guides are like, so for me, I read this as it changes the order in the neurons, in the DNA, I'm hearing monoglutide, monoconoglutide, something in there. And it's it's commanding our body that we're ready. We're like, yeah, we asked to grow, so here it is, right? So it's commanding and changing the order of our cells, of our DNA, our genetic code, right? So I'll have to look up this later. So fascinating. It also has something to do with how we measure things because I've been writing about the numbers change. So it's talking about the system of units, measurements, so on and so forth. So we'll have to come back to that later, how we measure things. And I was seeing doors blown wide open. So I was hearing imperial and doors blown wide open. So remember, as within, so without. We're also, while this is all going on, is what I'm talking about in this video, what are we seeing happening within our governmental systems, our political systems, right? So all of that changes also. And so doors blown wide open, like big things might start to change and happen as people begin to evolve, grow, and see things differently. And we're seeing that now. Um, Also, I was seeing like big airflow comes in. And then if you open both doors, it becomes a funnel. And so I was being shown it has something to do with the timing of the energies. And again, this is where my friend Jess is going to come in. She's talking about the funnel in the brain. So something happens that funnels in the brain, and she described it, but having to do with I'm hearing the limbic system. I don't know if she said that or not, but limbic system. Now we'll just play back with what they're saying in here. That funnel that comes in can feel like lots of information because our is an electric capacitor. One might say it has the capacity for exchanging with electricity. So sound, harmonics, and vibration. And we might say that the energy from the planetary compilations is like music, ringing into the system. I was seeing ringing out, squeezing out all this stuff. So whatever is happening is being pushed to get more, receive more, so that none of the energy gets lost. And that is why the timing is the way that it is. So it's all like divine order. Um, Now let's go back to this. The funnel that comes in can feel like a lot of information. I'll do a video too, and we're gonna talk about literally the funnel in the brain. We're gonna talk literally about the codes and the codons, and that'll be a different video. This is just an introduction. So our brain is an electric capacitor. One might say it has the capacity for exchanging with electricity. So it's not just that the brain is electrical, we have synapses and neurons and all of that, it exchanges with it. So again, it's that open exchange system. And it talks about it being a capacitor. So let's just pretend for a moment and play with what the guides are saying is our brain is an electric capacitor. Okay, so what is that? It's a device that stores electrical energy by accumulating electric charges on two closely spaced surfaces that are insulated from each other. Well, our brain is insulated in cerebral spinal fluid. Um, and we'll come back to that later. So I will say this though, the utility of a capacitor depends on its capacitance. So it depends on how much charge we can hold. So it's increasing our capacitance. Did I say that right? Yes. Whew. All right. So it feels like a lot for some people right now, like me. Okay, and then there's more. We'll come back to this. It's music, it's compilations, it's ringing into the system. So if you look at, I remember going back to like Dan Winter's works. He's an electrical engineer. And of course, everybody I mentioned in these videos, no matter what video it is, I'm not saying I'm 100% in agreement with anything that anybody says, but I love taking what resonates and what is synchronistic for me and pulling it in because we can all learn from each other. So I'm not sure about all of his work. I only know a little bit that I've looked into, and I really love what he talks about in regards to boy, it's been a while since I've listened. Sorry, Dan, I'm butchering this, but the squeeze, um, 0 point, the toroidal spin, um, bliss. It's bliss charge frequency. It's like Kundalini. It's all of that. So we might come back to that a bit later because I can tell there's a lot of layers we can go. Ringing in the ears. You can ring my bell. So that's all like the ringing of the bell. Like there's another meaning and another layer here. Um, so it's a squeeze. I'm seeing a toothpaste tube. And it's squeezing out all of the energy so that nothing is wasted, right? So the energy that you sit within is highly volatile because it is a charge. It comes with a charge, a push. So that even is a play on words. We're sitting inside of this capacitor. We are a conductor, but we're also sitting inside of a plasma field, which is all charge and waves and energy. And we're sitting inside the sphere of the earth, which is sitting inside the ionosphere and the stratosphere and all of that. So it's all nesting dolls of charge and waves, right? And it comes with a charge. So we come with this. Like we have this inside of us, this biophotoluminescence inside of us, the kundalini, that freak, the spirit that moves through all things, this energy that's in our pineal gland, it's in our right, it's that electricity, it's the fluid inside of us, it's the pituitary gland, it's the spark of life. It's inside of us. But everything that's happening comes with a charge. Like it's charging at us. It's like I'm gonna get, we're gonna go. Let's push. Um, charge, right? Now they're saying let us move back into the brain. So again, I'll go into this in more depth later. It actually creates an energetic convergence inside the body, for the body responds to the body of work. And I'm being shown this has to do, I'm being shown like when you push something up a hill, there's something happening to do with physics here. And the body is responding to this as well. So this is a play on words. The brain then responds like a transponder, opens and becomes like a cathode. And so the brain then harnesses part of this electromagnetic frequency and creates a charge, and it lights up the canyons. So if you take a look at the brain, it's like all of these canyons, right? All kind of moved into each other, right? They're all just like grooves um and so we'll dive into this. I might actually take a break and do a part two because I'm running out of time. So we're going to end on this note. We'll just touch briefly and we'll end on this note. So uh, the brain responds like a transponder and becomes like a cathode. I think it's a cathode ray, but I'll just show you briefly what that is. Okay, so the brain becomes like a transponder. A transponder is a radio or radar device that automatically responds to a signal it receives by transmitting its own signal. Now, I've written about this a lot before. It like pings. All of a sudden, it's like boop, 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 boop. It's like something inside of us turns on, and a radio or radar device automatically responds to a signal it receives by transmitting its own signal. So it's like this, and again, I'm hearing the 100th monkey effect. It's contagious, right? If you have a Kundalini awakening, other people around you pick up on that because we're all transponders essentially. So, I'm being called to go into like how that works. So it's talking about fiber optic communications. And we're going to come back to this because I'm going to, there's definitely a lot here. So it becomes like a transponder and becomes like a cathode. It opens and becomes like a cathode. So a cathode is an electrode where reduction, excuse me, occurs, gaining electrons. So we'll come back to it's an electrode from which a conventional current leaves. Oh, I love this. Okay, this is a fun way to end because it's a play on words. A cathode is the electrode from which a conventional current leaves a polarized electrical device. I love it. We become less polarized. This is hilarious. And I'll go into cathode, like what it looks like, because it actually has to do with the cathode ray. And I'll just finish reading this. So the brain then harnesses part of the electromagnetic frequency, creates a charge, and it lights up the canyons. And I was seeing the gray area, the ventricles, and you might think of a brain as a planet with all of these folds, and that's what's lighting up. So it also lights up in the planet, the crystals, the water, the dirt, right, which is all soil. Everything is affected by this. And it begins to transmit a signal. So I didn't realize that that's what a transponder was, but that's what happens. The brain begins to transmit a signal, and this signal, I was hearing radioactive radio, sends out a pulse. The pulse then reorganizes its bandwidth and allows for a higher trajectory to be accumulated within us and within the planetary body trajectory. So that's all a play on words. And I will just briefly touch on that when this happens, what I was being shown is the neurons, the synapses in the brain. I was being shown the cones in the eyes, the funnels, and I was also being shown the ventricles in the brain. And it's a vibration. The pulse is like a heartbeat. It sends out a pulse, and this vibrates through the body, the brain, and it activates the brain. It's like when you have the pituitary gland and your pineal gland open, there's a fluid that moves through it, and that moves with a charge. It lights up the brain. That's like when you have people who channel and they do brain, or we use whatever their powers are, their brain looks different than a conventional brain. And everything lights up. It reorganizes the bandwidth, okay? And we're able to harness this electromagnetic frequency. It allows for a higher trajectory. So if we're looking at that, where we're going, basically. But that's also a play on words. A trajectory is the path followed by a projectile flying or an object moving under the action of given forces, a curve or surface at a constant angle. So what it does is it changes our angle, how we see things through our brain, through our eyes, but also in the planet and the earth. But this also has to do with the earth. So somehow it's changing the trajectory of maybe the earth. I'll have to come back to that. But it also changes the trajectory of our timeline, of our reality, of where we're going in our dimensional existence. So it's all connected. I'll come back to reorganizing the bandwidth and this higher trajectory to be accumulated within us. So if we're thinking of that, something is building up, right? So this movement is building up because it's talking about it's being thrown across, and they're talking about it as a comet, the curve that a body, such as a planet or comet in its orbit, describes in space. Ooh, this is so much fun. So it changes everything. A trajectory or flight path is the path that an object with mass in motion follows through space as a function of time. So this is changing um, everything, how we move in time, the angle, where we're going in time. We might have been heading for one direction, but now we're heading for a different direction, right? I mean, obviously that's common sense, but so a higher trajectory to be accumulated within us. So I'm going to end on this note for now, and we're going to come back to this later. So if you've made it this far, another gold star. I don't know if anybody really, some people do make it this far. I know. Thank you, Jim. But I just want to share that what I'm sharing and how I'm sharing this, you guys, I'm going to end on this note. I have so much fun with it because it does light up my brain. The way that I get this information, I am clearly not an astrologist, and most certainly not an astronomer, clearly not a scientist. You know, math I find is a complete foreign language to me, um, obviously, but I love it all. It's fascinating to me. I'm open to it. And because I'm curious about it, I'm able to interact with this information in such a way, and I'm curious about language and communication. It's fun for me. And the more I do it, it's like a muscle. The stronger it gets, and the more I begin to understand that I don't understand. And then I ask more questions and then I understand more. It's just this exchange, open exchange of energy, and it's a resource for me. And it fuels my fire, right? It fuels um my energetic desire and passion to come into this new reality in such a way that it brings um expansion to whoever's tuning in, whoever's listening. I just love it. So I'm so grateful for you guys sharing these videos and listening and watching. And hopefully you found this kind of fun, if not informative. And we'll come back to this later. If any questions, I mean, I'd love to answer questions about this if I can. But in the meantime, lots of love, to be continued. Namaste.